Welcome back, folks. My name is LastKnownMeal, and today we're going to be talking about Johnny Silverhand. Was he good or bad? Was he right or wrong? So today I really want to go into Johnny Silverhand as a character and as a personality, where we're going to talk about everything which has transpired ever since Cyberpunk 2020 through the Fourth Corporate War and, through Cyberpunk 2077, where we get to experience Johnny Silverhand as an engram inside of us, and well, we have to fight his decisions, his way of looking at things, and obviously our way of looking at things and how our character was supposed to react to all of that. So today we're gonna be talking about his decisions and ultimately everything which has led to his demise. Now obviously I will be going into spoilers, so if you don't want to know that, you have been warned, but for everyone else, let's jump into the video. So looking at Johnny Silverhand as a character, we first have to look at his background. So Johnny was a soldier, and as a soldier you are trained in a certain way to assess situation in different ways depending on what is going on, and sometimes there is this motto where basically means justify the end, and you can kind of correlate that with everything which he has done. For example, like rallying people to basically start a riot in front of Arasaka so he could create a diversion, so he could go in and basically do his own job and save Alt and all of that. But what ultimately ended up happening is that a lot of those people were gunned down, because you don't simply go and assault Arasaka Tower without taking casualties. So when people look at those events and what he did there, you kind of think about him and say like, okay, was he really someone who cared about people, or was he someone who just used people to satisfy his own ego because Arasaka ultimately crossed him, and you don't cross Johnny Silverhand, that doesn't happen. And also keep one thing in mind, besides being a soldier, Johnny was also a rocker boy. And as a rocker boy in this universe, you are incredibly charismatic, and the samurai were the top of the top, so they had the most influence, and they were able to basically rally people to do anything that they kinda wanted to do, and Johnny knew that. And being a character with a big ego as Johnny, you have to think about what led him to those decisions. So first off, I don't think that ultimately Johnny is a bad person when it comes to, like, let's say morals in Cyberpunk universe, because what are morals in Cyberpunk universe? You don't really have good or bad. You have people who are really just threading that needle, and ultimately they will be doing everything they can to satisfy themselves and everything that they stand for and all of their objectives. Like for example, every single corporation does in this universe, and where every single person here, like Saburo Arasaka, did. Ultimately, everything was about that control, everything was about that power. So you don't really have morally good or morally bad in this game, because that doesn't matter in this universe. The morals of Cyberpunk subgenre were just thrown in the bin long time ago. So as someone who went through a lot, Johnny wasn't really a stable person like we could have seen, like for example from those prequel moments in the game, where he was, let's say, really wanting to die a lot of times, drinking, smoking, doing all kinds of pills and all of that, where he didn't really value his own life. Typical rocker boy stuff. So ultimately, when you have a person who is, let's say, angry as him, and who looks at this world where he kind of correlates what corporations are doing to the people, and he feels sad about it because he doesn't want corporations to control people, then you get this very unstable person who is capable of doing a lot of things. So now what happens when your girlfriend is one of the best net runners in the game, and who ultimately gets kidnapped by Arasaka because she developed a soul killer virus, which, Arasaka really wanted for themselves. So now you basically had a corporation known as Arasaka, which he hated a long time before everything which is happening with Alt crossed him. What happens then? You cross Johnny Silverhand, you crossed his ego, and at the same time you abducted the only person in his life that he potentially really loved, which was Alt Cunningham. So now all of your morals that you have inside of you basically just go to waste, and now you're thinking, okay, how do I achieve this? What do I do? So in his brain, I think he decided to ultimately, put Arasaka as the top enemy of the people, and basically this corporation which just wants to destroy everything and control everything, and they don't want people to have any sort of freedom. So in his mind, what he was doing was justifying that. But at the same time, you have to look at one thing. Everything which has been happening at the assault of the Arasaka Tower was done with the help of Militech. And what is Militech if not another corporation which honestly has the same MO as Arasaka? Militech and Arasaka, they're the same. Like, the only reason why people don't really look at Militech in that way is because, well, Militech wasn't really represented much in Cyberpunk 2077, which I hope that is going to change. I mean, who do you think provided a nuclear bomb? It was Militech. Who do you think provided some of the firepower? It was Militech along with Morgan Blackhand. So now you had this very angry individual as Johnny Silverhand, fully knowing that he is carrying a nuclear bomb into the Arasaka Tower, fully knowing that Militech is helping him, and Militech used that very well because they were like, okay, we have an angry individual going at our biggest competitor, we are in this crazy war, let's just defeat them by doing this. So ultimately, Johnny ended up being just the extended hand of Militech, who used him because he wanted to save Alt in that way. And fully knowing that, Johnny detonated a nuclear bomb in the middle of Night City, fully knowing that a lot of people won't survive that, and not just only the corporates but also innocent people out, because at that point he was angry, and that's where this means justifies the end comes from, where basically everything which does happen is considered a collateral damage, where you as someone in the army learn to know a lot. And when you combine all of that with this unstable personality, you get someone who ultimately wanted to do good for people, but he kind of got consumed by the same person that he wanted to stop, where now you're basically blinded by rage and you will do everything in your power to put your revenge onto people who did you harm. So I think this ego played a very big role when it comes to Johnny and his brain and his way of thinking when it came to all of it which basically transpired. And you can see that very well in Cyberpunk 2077, where sometimes you will just go through something and Johnny is just gonna say, yeah, this was just it, this was how it is, but not knowing that he basically created this thing. Because did he stop Arasaka when he detonated that nuclear bomb? No. Did he stop corporates from taking over the world? No. Nothing really changed, where in 2077 all of them stand pretty tall still in the middle of that city center. And even at the end of, like, for example, that first trailer which came out for Cyberpunk 2077, where Johnny was revealed, he basically said, we have a city to burn. So all of this anger that he experienced from like the end of Fourth Corporate War, and basically which has transpired during the assault of the Arasaka Tower, never ultimately stopped, where in his mind, if he cannot have like the love of his life, if he cannot have happiness, no one can have happiness. So the best thing you can do is raise everything to the ground, destroy everything so that everyone else can feel the same anger that you have. So now when you think about this whole question about being good or bad, it all comes down to one thing. He justified his actions where he thought that this is good what I'm doing, this is definitely good. That's called basically cognitive dissonance, where if you tell him, hey, you killed some innocent civilians, he was like, no, this is basically what needs to happen. This is the only way to defeat Arasaka, this is the way to do. But he wasn't that bad, because ultimately what he wanted to fight against was that oppression. But that oppression got blurred, as I said, with his rage towards Arasaka, because they crossed him, they crossed Alt. And when those things happen, people start doing very dumb things. So in my opinion, I think Johnny, ever since, you know, he went back from the war and when he started to basically form the samurai and go on his gigs and everything, I think throughout all of that time he kind of lost his compass and became a ticking time bomb, literally became a ticking time bomb which was set to explode, and exploded basically at the assault on the Arasaka Tower. And I think maybe even if something else had happened, he would have done the same. I think Alt was just that final trigger which made him go nuts, crazy mode. And that's where everything started going from, okay, we have to fight these corporations, to burn everything to the ground, I don't care about anything else. And that was truly the case, because ultimately you didn't fight corporates, you fought Arasaka, and Militech actually helped you in that. So now this moral dilemma that people in this universe have, for example, if Johnny was good or bad, depends who you ask, and Arasaka was really going towards that propaganda to paint him as the worst person in the world, but if you ask someone else who is basically against corporations, they will say, yeah, that's something he needed to do. So ultimately everything around Johnny is going to be 50-50, and don't think that Johnny is a good person. You don't really have good people in Cyberpunk. If you take a look at Cyberpunk 2077, maybe River Ward is kind of a morally good person, but even River goes through a lot of, like, for example, like mental gymnastic in his head to like see like how you go through this and how you react to certain things. And I guess that can be said for Johnny as well, where this world and the universe he lived in ultimately rewired him and made him go crazy and changed everything that he stood for and turned him into what it is, where this universe and Night City will take you and basically chew you out and spit you out. And that's what happened with Johnny. As much as he likes to think that nothing happened to him and he was in control this entire time, he really wasn't, and he went haywire. And that's the same vibe I get once I play Cyberpunk 2077, where his decisions there are just basically the remnants of his past, and just, you know, going through everything happening in 2077 and what you were tasked to do, for example, that he tasked you to do, everything happening there was leading towards him, coming out on top and finding Alt. He didn't care about anyone else, even you. Maybe at the end he did, but it really wasn't that. He doesn't care about V all that much. He does care about himself, and he cares about Alt, maybe in some twisted way because they crossed him. But a lot of people will consider Johnny to be a realist and basically someone who sees the world for what it is and ultimately what you become in that world. So I think in my mind that's what Mike Pondsmith was going for, and that's why I think that Johnny is so well written by Mike Pondsmith, and even to this day you can kind of look at this character and see his good or bad sides, and then you can have this moral dilemma if all of this really happening was something that you can justify or not, because if he doesn't do it, who else? So that's what I think about Johnny overall, and I'm very interested to hear what do you think about all of this. What do you think about Johnny? Do you think of him as an ultimately a bad person, ultimately a good person, but who lost his compass, and everything which basically transpired turned him into this empty husk where he didn't care about anything else rather than to just basically destroy everything and get out his hatred and his rage on everyone else which was basically around him, where he became collateral himself. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to, as I said, comment down below, and also don't forget to click that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed this video. I wanted to talk about this for a very long time, and I'm glad that I sorted it out. And also check us out on Twitter and Discord, and huge thanks to my current Patreon supporters. This is LKM signing out, and I'll talk to you in the next video. Bye bye.